Hi, on the show this week I got asked, how do you speak to a colleague about mental health in the workplace? I'll tell you all about it in 5 seconds time.
Ready camera, studio standby.
Studio is ready for live.
If I enter your life, it will change.
Steven, your show is not a show.
You show everything with such authenticity.
It's an experience.
Part of the reason I share that is you've got to start speaking up. You've got to start being present to who you are and disconnect from the conditioning that's been forced upon you. You've got to start going, this is who I am. I'm a 50-plus-year-old guy who doesn't have a wife, doesn't have a family, doesn't have children, don't have my own home. And I have people from around the world. I have 7-year-old girls who send me hand-drawn paintings from the Netherlands calling me uncle, because I broke through the persona that at this color of hair, this age of face, I'm supposed to be a certain thing with a certain level of attributes. So my message to you before we go to the next question in a moment, Donna, is start living into what you are and moving away from the conditioning of what's expected of you. The only thing that's expected of you in the world is kindness, gratitude, and common courtesy, starting with yourself and then sharing it with every human being you come near. So as we go through the next sections and some other questions that are coming, you'll understand why I've just given you that positioning. So the message before we go to the next slide, Donna, under no circumstances do you step back from who you are. Under no circumstances do you silence your voice about who you believe you are, and you go looking for people like me and others, like I go looking to help you release and speak up about your truth. Donna, what's the next question? How to talk to colleagues about mental health. Call this workplace empathy, and let's break down a few little pieces before we go to the academy, Donna. It's going to be scary. Has it always been easy for me to actually get on screen on a live show, and this is all cut out and shared, and be able to express what I just did? No, but I'm so focused on my mission and legacy now, it's easy for me to do it. So number one, it's going to be scary to talk about it. But when you talk about it, you humanize it. When you talk about some of the challenges you've got, whether it's mental health, whether it's your resilience is being eroded, whether you're feeling a sense of depression, in the workplace, when you talk about it, it humanizes it. Next one's Donna. So how do you talk about it? Human beings, and the next video cut out of the academy goes into this in detail, human beings talk in feelings and needs. But generationally, we've been conditioned to talk in cliches and fact. We're number one and we won't be beaten on price. The cliches of the movies of I'll Be Back and all those types of things. We typically talk in cliche and fact. But the human soul, the human heart, the human mind, and the mental health and depressive mind of someone who's in challenge is all about feelings and needs. So let's jump into the academy and we'll come back to the board in a moment. First level of communication, not just in business, but just generally. People love to talk in cliches. We all do it. Second form of communication is to speak in facts. The fourth, and I'm purposely jumping ahead, is to talk in feelings. And the fifth is to talk in needs. How are you feeling? What do you need? First level is cliches, facts, feelings, and need. Fourth and fifth. The third is opinion. And I've put it right at the center, right at the top, in a hexagonal, bigger one than the others, for a very, very specific reason. Most businesses are still communicating in a cliche and a fact because they're trying to sell, basing their whole approach on logic. The interesting thing to be very aware of here is most customers are thinking of how they're feeling and what they need. So one of the things that we need to be very conscious of, and let's put question 1 and 2 together on this. Jump on the board for me, Donna. Conditioning, cliche, and fact. Remember how I said generationally, we've been conditioned that we don't speak up. We men don't speak up about our vulnerability. Traditionally, women are conditioned to think that if they do speak up about their vulnerability amongst men, it will be kind of battered away a little bit, which is terrible, but that's actually what's happened. So our condition, it's changing, which is beautiful. Our conditioning generationally is that we are always looking for cliche and fact. We're always trying to repair or fix, always. And the other thing to consider, human beings typically are three things. We're very curious, we're very competitive, and we're very compassionate. But the compassion's got to be triggered. What do I mean by that? A tidal wave or a tsunami goes around and it damages a lot of people around the world. God bless them. Planes fly into buildings a long time ago, hopefully never happening again. COVID comes along and our compassion goes to the top of the queue. What's happening now as we start getting to live with the pandemic and move past the actual pandemic proper, if that's the right words, compassion's dropped down to the bottom and we've got curious and competitive again. So one of the things that we need to be realize when you're speaking to someone in your workplace, you're either someone who's a leader trying to encourage expression, or you're someone who's wanting to speak and hoping someone will encourage you to do so. The first thing you need to realize is that people are conditioned that we don't go to the workplace and talk about personal, although that's changing, because part of the workplace now is remote working. Part of the workplace is working from home. Part of the workplace is sitting in your car on a phone, doing a FaceTime and a meeting, waiting to do the school run. So that the work-life bridging, as we call it inside the Institute, has become more prominent now than ever, and it's not going away. So when you are a leader, understand the person you're speaking to is conditioned to think that you're going to cliche fact, repair, and fix them. Now, Donna, let's go to the board. I need to have a quick chat with everyone over on the second studio for a second. I'll come back here in a moment. Here we go. Whenever you talk to someone about mental health issues, the way you're feeling, or whether you're someone who's trying to encourage someone to speak to you, please do one thing for me. There's a great line in a Jack Nicholson movie where he's talking to a guy and it's about a romantic situation and he's not doing too well and he doesn't know how to ring the girl up and all that stuff. And the guy's actually telling him about, oh, you're a failure, you're not very good with girls, you won't know what to say, blah, 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 blah. And Nicholson looks at it and he says, I'm drowning here and you're describing the water. So often when I speak to people and mention the word mental health, they'll give me a list of all of the things that are tragic in the world that are happening right now. And the only way I've found to stop them is to ask them, do you have any solution to that? And it stops them in their track. So number one, back to the board, Donna, one of the most important things that you need to understand is get really, really good at getting around people whose conditioning is open to compassion. Because more and more, when you express it in the workplace, you are normally saying something someone else wishes they can say. How many of us feel that we're isolated from some type of mental challenge, mental resilience, mental challenges that have been happening with COVID, happening with remote working, happening with work, having the kids at home, having all of those beautiful hobbies and interests that we had constrained from us? How many of us have had to change our routines, change our conditionings, and then someone comes along at work and says, you know what, I'm finding this a little hard. Everyone, when you speak up, 95% of people listening are grateful that you did. Let me say that again. When you speak up, 95% of people that are listening are grateful that you did. So I sit here as a guy who's not married, that once was, sadly not anymore, who'd gone through bankruptcy, who's gone through a suicide attempt, who's lived for the last decade all by himself, wakes up and goes to bed every single night and is constantly by himself. And yet every single day people ring me up and talk to me about their children, their teenage children, talk to me about their life, talk to me about their cancer journey, talk to me about so many different things, from 159-day-old infants all the way up to people who are in their 80s. And you know why, everyone? Because I got past the point of realizing my conditioning of who I am is got nothing to do with how I can help you. Speak up. Get away from cliches and facts and get into this process. Your mental health ability is to be able to express your feelings, to be able to express your needs. And sometimes, everyone, that is going to be you actually downloading and dumping on people. But you need to understand that if you're a leader, if you're a manager, and someone comes to you and actually says, I'm struggling, expect them to download initially. Your job is to not go to repair and fix straight away. Your job, when they say, look, I'm finding it really struggling, the whole thing about home working and it's just my routines are different and I'm challenged, whatever it might be, your job is to not give them a shopping list of what the problems are. Your job is to listen. Then your job is to elicit feelings and needs. And inside the academy, we break out the communication languages, the use of words, the actual word use patterns that you do to make that come true. Your conditioning is that I can't speak up, and if I do, I'm going to get a cliche in fact and a repair and fix at work. It's no longer true, but you have to lead. As a leader, you have to lead and draw it out. What's the best way as a leader to do that? Example. The truest form of leadership is example. So let's wrap all of this up. Human beings are very curious, competitive, and compassionate. So when you speak up about the troubles you're having with the challenges of mental health, all of the changes in the world, all of the dynamics that have happened and changed both pre-pandemic and post, people will be compassionate towards you, but you've got to trigger it. I went over there to the second studio to trigger before I started this. I triggered the emotion of getting you to give me permission that if I talk into your life, I'm actually doing it from a place of example. I'm not standing here with my fancy jacket on going, life's pretty good for me, everyone. Why don't you give me your name and number and your email address and I'll tell you how to be superstar successful. You just have to pay me a little bit of money. No, I tell you about how I completely and utterly failed until I learned how I could help you and put out a show that is dripping with information. Way before I ask you to do anything or pay anything, because my job is to get you released. My job is to unlock you. My job is to lift you. And from that place of lift, the 2 or 3% of people who have the guts to enter the Sede Academy come on a journey. It's the reason why children at 7 and little babies at 159, their pictures hang on the wall of my living room, because that is my life. What is your life, everyone? What is it that you want? Because mental health and mental resilience is your faith and belief that what you want is what you can get. Donna? Oh, I'm going to have to get better at this, Donna. I always forget this bit. Okay, so we've talked about the whole business of how do you talk, what are the levels of communication, feelings and needs, everything that I've just mentioned, and it goes into more detail in a couple of videos inside the Academy. One video that accompanies this really well is your ability to share what we call your secure to assure model. What is your ability, story, struggle, undertaking, reputation, and your expertise? How do you capture that? And then how do you express it using the levels of communication? But how do you express your ability, your story, your struggles, your undertaking, your reputation, your expertise? And you might do that because you're trying to secure new business. And guess what? You might use the assure model. What's my ability, story, struggle, undertaking, reputation, and expertise? When you sit down with your boss or sit down with your significant other, or you sit down with your friends and you use the assure model to express to them your mental health challenges and how you're looking for the love of a friend, the companionship of a boss to help you on the journey through this amazing thing called life. Donna? Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. Just very quickly, I wanted to explain to you about what I mean by custom lesson plans. Given the size of the Academy, one of the things that I did was I went through all of the 16 classes and I collected 7 weeks of content in a systematic way with certifications and graduations and assessments through that 7-week process. I've created personal development lesson plans, business mentoring lesson plans, and work-life bridging lesson plans, and they're sequenced where you can actually work through the Ask Me forums, through the group coaching once a month, using a specific dedicated lesson plan. As you can see, mentality, content and confidence, engagement, fearless, impact and presentation mastery. So it's everything from getting your attitude right to how you create content correctly, how you have confidence in meeting people, how you speak, how you project your voice, how you do some elements of marketing yourself, all within the Decisive Life Custom Lesson Plan for just over $1 a day as part of the community membership of the Sede Institute. Let's get back to the show. Details in the link below. Hello, everyone. I'll ad-lib while Donna works out where we are. One of the things in terms of the reference towards the community, the reference towards the Institute and the Academy, I'll just do this while Donna gets her bearings on some stuff. I changed everything just before the show. So in fairness to Donna, literally about half an hour before, I'd made some changes to the slide and the routines of things. So the poor thing is catching up. So bless you, Donna. Everyone, part of the reason we mention about community institutes and academies and all those types of things, and I'll do this now, Donna, in terms of the Ascension stuff, there is an ability to actually become part of a Sede community, which is inside the Institute. So there's an institute which has an academy in it. The academy has a whole bunch of training that's got everything to do, to be perfectly honest, everyone. When I came back to Australia and I was bankrupt 6 months after suicide, I didn't know what to do. I thought I was so useless. I couldn't put the roof down in a convertible and drive myself off the planet. So what I did is I started listening to self-esteem videos while I was walking along the beaches in Western Australia. And along that path, I met people like Brendan Bouchard and Brian Tracy. And I started this process of how do you actually package up your expertise that took me around the world. From an insurance guy back in 1998 all the way to working for Homeland Security in the Foreign Office in the UK on biometrics and counterterrorism. How did I do that? And so what I did is I made a course about your mind, about your message, how you market yourself, about how you go and speak, because I'd lost all my confidence, how you actually go and network and introduce yourself to people. Then how do you package up what you do? So I wrote a book called The Advance of Smart about how I went to England. So everyone, my academy is this selfish thing that I did about learning how to go from a guy that used to own property around the world and be a millionaire to then living in a hostel. And some of the academy was actually created when I was living in hostels with less than $100 in the bank. So what I did is I created a thing about what's your mind, what's your message, what's your method of meeting people, what's your meaning and how you speak, and what's your mastery and what your ability is. And I put it in a thing called the BU Academy. There's a community where you get for just over $1 a day access, and you get to speak to me once a month in a group coaching, and there's all kinds of trainings in a group. You can then get into one-to-one coaching with me, group coaching with me, all kinds of things like that. But here's the message to you, everyone. What is it that you've done through your life that's packaged your expertise into a way that you could help someone else? And maybe you don't have a fancy blue jacket. Maybe you don't know how to do lighting. Maybe you don't know how to do the stuff in front of a camera. It doesn't matter. What do you know that could help improve someone else's life? And here's the tip, everyone. Whilst you're doing it, and building it and learning it, you're actually changing your own. Okay, everyone. As I said to you before, if you're wanting to get involved in the Sede Institute at community level or even coaching, reach out to us in all the different ways that you can. But until I see you in the next show, be well and be brilliant. Today more than ever, humanity needs you.
Start investing in the world called your dreams.